A skeletal 8-year-old boy walked into a biker bar carrying a crumpled napkin with a desperate message that would change everything. Before we dive into the story, make sure to smash subscribe because tomorrow we have an extra special story for you that will blow your mind. The Iron Wolves Motorcycle Club was having their weekly Thursday meeting at Diesel's bar when the door creaked open at 8:47 p.m. Every conversation stopped dead. Pool cues froze mid-shot, beer bottles paused halfway to lips. Standing in the doorway was a boy so thin his clothes hung like curtains on his tiny frame. His cheekbones jutted out sharply, creating shadows on his hollow face. His eyes were sunken so deep they looked like dark caves. Big Mike, the 6'4" club president with arms like tree trunks, was the first to move. His heavy boots echoed on the wooden floor as he walked toward the child. "Son, are you lost?" The boy shook his head slowly and held out a crumpled napkin with hands that looked like bird claws. His fingers trembled so badly the napkin fluttered like a dying butterfly. Written in red crayon with shaky letters were the words, "Please help me. My mom won't let me eat." The silence in the bar became deafening. These were men who'd been in knife fights, who'd done time in maximum security prisons, who'd seen friends die in gang wars. But this was different. "What's your name?" Big Mike asked, his voice gentler than any of his brothers had ever heard it. "Jason," the boy whispered, his voice barely audible. "When's the last time you ate, Jason?" The boy's eyes darted around the room like a trapped animal. 4 days ago. Mom said I was getting too fat. She said nobody loves fat kids." The room erupted like a volcano. Cursing in 3 different languages filled the air. Beer bottles slammed on tables. Razor, the club's enforcer, who had death before dishonor tattooed across his neck, kicked a chair so hard it shattered against the wall. "Where does this woman live?" Razor growled, his hand moving instinctively to the knife on his belt. "The yellow house at the end of Pine Street," Jason said, shrinking back. "But please don't hurt her, she's sick. The pills make her mean." Big Mike knelt down slowly, his leather jacket creaking. At this level, he could see the boy's neck, thin as a baby bird's. "Sick how, Jason?" "She takes the white pills that make her eyes funny. She used to be nice before the pills. She used to make me pancakes shaped like Mickey Mouse." A single tear rolled down Jason's skeletal cheek. That was before Daddy left. Doc stepped forward. He was the club's unofficial medic, a former Army corpsman who'd been kicked out for stealing morphine to sell, though he'd long since gotten clean. "Can I check you over, buddy? I used to be a soldier doctor." Jason nodded, too exhausted to be afraid anymore. What Doc found made the blood drain from his weathered face. The boy weighed exactly 43 pounds when a healthy 8-year-old should weigh at least 65. His ribs weren't just visible, they looked like they might poke through his paper-thin skin. Purple and yellow bruises covered his arms in the perfect shape of adult fingers. Worse, there were older scars, thin lines on his shoulders that looked suspiciously like belt marks. "This kid needs a hospital," Doc announced, his voice shaking with rage. "He's got all the signs of severe malnutrition. His body is eating itself to stay alive." "No!" Jason cried, finding strength in his terror. "No hospital. They'll take me away forever. Mom said if I tell anyone, they'll put me in a bad place with mean kids who will hurt me worse. She said foster kids get beaten and nobody cares." Rosa, the 50-year-old bartender who'd raised 5 kids of her own and had arms like a linebacker from years of breaking up bar fights, pushed through the crowd of bikers. "Nobody's taking you anywhere you don't want to go, baby," she looked at Big Mike. "Kitchen, now." Big Mike made a decision that would set everything in motion. "First, we feed this boy. Then we handle the rest. Doc, stay with him. Razor, Snake, with me." While Rosa bustled in the kitchen, Big Mike made rapid-fire calls. The first was to their lawyer, Tommy Chen, a former member who'd gotten out of the outlaw life but still helped when kids were involved. The second was to Lisa, his wife, who worked as a social worker. The third was a mass text to every member of the Iron Wolves. Code red, all members to the clubhouse now. Rosa emerged with a feast fit for a king: grilled cheese sandwich, a chicken soup, mashed potatoes, chocolate milk, and cookies. Jason's eyes went wide as saucers. "This is all for me?" "Every bite, honey," Rosa said, tears in her eyes. Jason ate like a wild animal, making small whimpering sounds with each bite. Tears streamed down his face, mixing with the soup. He ate so fast he started choking. Doc had to slow him down. "Easy, little man. Small bites. There's plenty more where that came from." "You promise?" Jason asked, his eyes desperate. "You're not lying to make me feel better?" "I promise on my bike," Big Mike said solemnly. In biker culture, there was no stronger oath. Within 30 minutes, the bar was packed. Motorcycles lined the street 3 deep. The rumble of Harleys had awakened the entire neighborhood. Jason looked terrified at all the leather-clad giants filling every corner of the bar. Some had face tattoos, others had scars that told stories of violence. One man was missing an eye, another had "Killer" tattooed across his forehead. "These are all friends," Big Mike assured him. "Every single one of them is here to help you. You know why?" Jason shook his head. "Because we protect kids, always. It's our most sacred rule." Snake, the club's sergeant-at-arms, had been busy on his phone. "The house at 47 Pine Street belongs to Amanda Morrison, age 32, single mom, no job on record for the last year. Multiple police calls to the address for domestic disturbances but no arrests. 3 CPS investigations, all closed as unfounded." "Cops are useless," someone muttered from the back. "Then we handle it our way," Razor said, pulling out his knife. The blade gleamed in the bar light. "I say we pay Mommy Dearest a visit she'll never forget." "No," Big Mike commanded, his voice cutting through the anger. "We do this smart, legal. The kid needs long-term help, not his mom in the morgue and us doing 25 to life." That's when Lisa walked in. She was Big Mike's wife of 15 years, a saint who'd somehow fallen in love with an outlaw. She was still in her work clothes from the Department of Children and Families. She took one look at Jason, and her professional composure cracked. "Oh my God," she breathed. "How long has this been going on?" Jason was more comfortable with a woman asking questions. "Since Christmas," he said. "Mom said Santa doesn't bring presents to fat kids, so I had to get skinny. She said if I was good and got skinny, maybe Daddy would come back." It was now the end of March. This child had been systematically starved for 3 months. Lisa pulled out her phone with shaking hands. "I'm calling my supervisor. We need an emergency removal order." While they waited, Jason told his story, and every word was like a knife to the hearts of these hardened men. His father had left when Jason was 4, running off with a waitress from the truck stop. His mother had been okay at first, working double shifts at the diner and taking care of him. She'd been a good mom who read bedtime stories and checked for monsters under the bed. Then she hurt her back lifting a heavy tray. The doctor prescribed oxycodone. 30 pills became 60. 60 became doctor shopping. The pills led to harder things when the prescriptions ran out. The job went away when she showed up high. The electricity got shut off. The food disappeared. Everything went away except the pills and the needle. "She locks the refrigerator," Jason said matter-of-factly, as if this was normal. "And all the cabinets have padlocks. She counts the crackers to make sure I don't steal any. If one is missing, I have to go in the closet." "What's in the closet?" Rosa asked, though she didn't want to know the answer. "Nothing. It's dark, and there's no light, and sometimes there are spiders. I have to stay there until she remembers to let me out. Sometimes she forgets for a whole day." He paused. "I had an accident once because she forgot and I couldn't hold it. She made me clean it up and sleep in it." A biker in the back punched the wall so hard his knuckles split open. Others were openly crying, not caring who saw. These were men who'd been shot, stabbed, and beaten, but a child's suffering broke them in ways violence never could. "Why didn't you tell a teacher?" Lisa asked gently. "I tried once. Mom found out and said if I ever told again, she'd kill my hamster." His voice broke. "She killed Mr. Whiskers anyway, said it was eating too. Much food that should go to paying bills." The CPS supervisor arrived with 2 police officers. She looked nervous at the room full of bikers, but focused on Jason. "Hi, sweetie. I'm Mrs. Garcia. I'm here to help." "Are you going to take me to the bad place?" Jason asked. "There's no bad place, honey, but we need to make sure you're safe." "He's safe here," Big Mike said firmly. "He stays with us tonight." "That's not how it works," Mrs. Garcia said. "He needs to go into emergency foster placement." I'm a licensed foster parent, Lisa announced. 3 years, specializing in trauma cases. He can stay with us. Mrs. Garcia looked relieved. Licensed foster homes were like gold, especially for emergency placements. That would be perfect. But we need to check the home situation first. I need officers to do a welfare check. Then let's go, Big Mike said, standing up. I can't have 50 bikers accompanying me on a welfare check, Mrs. Garcia protested. Big Mike smiled, but it wasn't a friendly smile. Ma'am, you've got exactly 2 choices. We all go or none of us go, and this boy disappears into our protection. What's it going to be? What happens next will expose a nightmare beyond imagination and show why sometimes the people society fears most become unlikely guardian angels. Stay tuned to see what happens next. If you're enjoying the story, please like, share, and subscribe for more. Mrs. Garcia made the smart choice. What followed was a procession unlike anything the quiet town had ever seen. Her sedan was surrounded by 100 motorcycles, their engines roaring like angry dragons. Jason rode in Big Mike's truck between him and Lisa, wrapped in a club jacket that swallowed his tiny frame. He'd never felt safer in his life. Pine Street had never seen anything like it. Neighbors came out on their porches, phones recording. Children pressed their faces against windows. Dogs barked at the thunder of motorcycles. The yellow house at the end of the street looked like something from a horror movie. The yard was overgrown with weeds 3 feet high. Newspapers from 6 months ago molded on the porch. Every window was covered with aluminum foil. The front door had 5 different locks. The bikes lined the street like an invading army. Leather-clad bikers stood in formation, a black wall of solidarity. Big Mike helped Jason out of the truck. You don't have to go in, he said. I want to get Mr. Bunny, Jason said. He's the only toy she didn't sell. Mrs. Garcia knocked on the door. No answer. She knocked again, harder. Mrs. Morrison? This is Children and Family Services with the police department. We need to speak with you about Jason. They heard movement inside, things being thrown around, glass breaking. Then the door opened a crack, held by a chain. A single bloodshot eye peered out. What do you want? Even from outside, they could smell the stench, cat urine, rotting garbage, and something chemical. The eye focused on Jason. You little bastard, what did you do? Ma'am, please open the door, Officer Rodriguez said. Get off my property. This is America. I know my rights. We have concerns about Jason's welfare, Mrs. Garcia said calmly. We need to ensure he's being properly cared for. The door slammed shut. They heard more crashing inside, then screaming. It's all his fault. Everything was fine until he was born. He ruined my life. Officer Rodriguez looked at his partner. Exigent circumstances. We're going in. The door gave way with one kick from the officer's boot. What they found inside made even the veteran cops gag. The living room was a disaster. Garbage bags piled to the ceiling, cat feces everywhere despite no visible cats. Drug paraphernalia on every surface. The smell was overwhelming. Amanda Morrison stood in the middle of the chaos, a skeleton herself, but not from starvation. Track marks covered her arms like a roadmap of addiction. Her hair was matted, her teeth were mostly gone, and her eyes were wild with methamphetamine psychosis. Get out, she screamed. He's my son. I own him. Nobody owns that boy, Big Mike said, stepping inside, despite police protests. Amanda's eyes focused on him with difficulty. Who are you? His new daddy? He goes through them quick, always whining about food. Food, food, food. That's all he cares about. When did he last eat? Mrs. Garcia asked. He eats when he earns it. That's how you teach discipline. My parents beat me and I turned out fine. She laughed maniacally. He's manipulating all of you. He's a little con artist. Probably told you I'm mean, right? Said I don't feed him? Show us the kitchen, Officer Rodriguez ordered. Amanda's face changed. You need a warrant for that. No, we don't. Show us the kitchen now. What they found in the kitchen defied belief. Every cabinet had a padlock. The refrigerator was wrapped in chains with 3 different locks. The pantry door was nailed shut. The only accessible food was a bag of stale saltines on top of the refrigerator, far too high for a child to reach. Where does Jason sleep? Mrs. Garcia asked. I want my lawyer, Amanda screamed. They found Jason's room, and it was worse than anyone imagined. A bare mattress on the floor, stained with urine. No sheets, no blanket, no pillow. The closet door had a lock on the outside. Inside the closet was a bucket and scratch marks on the walls where small fingers had tried to claw their way out. But the worst discovery was the journal on a high shelf. Amanda had been making Jason write lines as punishment. Officer Rodriguez flipped through it, his face growing darker with each page. I don't deserve food. I am worthless. I made Daddy leave. I don't deserve food. I am worthless. I made Daddy leave. Page after page, hundreds of times. Some pages had tear stains. Others had blood where his hand had cramped so badly he'd torn his skin gripping the pencil. December 25th, Officer Rodriguez read, I will not ask for Christmas dinner. I am too fat for presents. January 1st, I will not cry when Mom hits me. Crying makes me ugly. February 14th, I don't deserve Valentine's. Nobody loves bad children. March 1st, if I die, Mommy will be happy. Lisa ran outside and vomited in the bushes. Several bikers followed her. Others stood frozen, tears streaming down scarred faces. These were men who'd lived violence, but this psychological torture of a child broke something in them. In the mother's bedroom, they found scales. Not 1 or 2, but 7 different scales. A notebook showed she'd been weighing Jason daily, punishing him if he gained even an ounce. Her goal weight for him was written in red, 35 pounds. She'd been systematically starving him to death. Arrest her, Mrs. Garcia said quietly. Amanda went berserk. She fought like a wild animal, scratching, biting, kicking. It took 3 officers to subdue her. As they dragged her out in handcuffs, she screamed at Jason. You ruined everything! I wish you were never born. I should have gotten rid of you when I had the chance. You're the reason your father left. You're the reason I'm like this. I hate you. Jason broke down completely, sobbing so hard his tiny body shook like a leaf. Big Mike scooped him up, holding him like a baby. Don't you listen to her, boy. Not one word. You're brave. You're strong. You're a survivor. She's my mommy, Jason wailed. Why doesn't she love me? Because she's sick, Lisa said, rubbing his back. Her brain is broken from the drugs. Nothing you did caused this. Nothing you could do would fix it. This is not your fault. The bikers formed a protective circle around them as they walked to the truck. Jason clung to Big Mike like his life depended on it. He'd grabbed his stuffed bunny, a ratty thing with one eye missing, and held it tight. Can I really stay with you? He whispered. For as long as you want, Big Mike promised. The next few days were a medical nightmare. Jason was hospitalized immediately for refeeding syndrome. His body had been starved so long it couldn't process normal food without risking heart failure. He needed IV nutrition and careful monitoring. The Iron Wolves set up a rotation. 24 hours a day, there was always at least one member in his hospital room, standing guard like leather-clad angels. The nurses were initially terrified of the bikers, but they quickly learned these rough men were teddy bears when it came to Jason. Razor, the enforcer who'd terrified grown men, spent hours reading children's books in silly voices. Snake taught Jason card tricks. Doc snuck in extra pudding cups when the nurses weren't looking. On the 3rd day, a man in an expensive suit showed up. I'm Kenneth Morrison, Amanda's brother and attorney. I need to speak with Jason. Tank and Razor stood up simultaneously. Tank was 6'6" and weighed 300 pounds. Razor had once fought off 4 men with a pool cue. Together, they were a wall of intimidation. Over my dead body, Razor growled. I have a legal right. You have a right to turn around and leave, Snake said, joining them, or we can discuss your rights in the parking lot. Are you threatening me? Nope, Big Mike said calmly. We're promising you. That boy has been through enough. You come near him, and we'll make sure you need this hospital services. The lawyer backed up. This isn't over. Amanda has rights. Amanda has a right to rot in jail, Lisa said. Now get out before these gentlemen help you find the exit. The lawyer practically ran out. But he wasn't done. He filed complaints with everyone, the hospital, CPS, the police. He claimed the bikers were a gang holding Jason hostage. He demanded immediate access to his nephew. Judge Patricia Hawkins wasn't impressed. She'd been on the bench for 20 years and had seen every trick. Mr. Morrison, your client systematically tortured her 8-year-old son. She has no rights here except the right to an attorney. She's sick, Your Honor. She needs treatment, not jail. She'll get treatment in prison. Bond is set at $500,000. That's excessive. I've seen the pictures, counselor. I've read the journal. Your client is lucky she's not being charged with attempted murder. Bond stands. The news spread through the biker community like wildfire. The Iron Wolves had taken in a kid, and he needed help. What happened next was beautiful. The Diablos MC from 2 towns over showed up with toys and clothes. The Road Warriors brought gift cards for food. The Steel Horses had their old ladies organize a fundraiser. Even the Savage Sons, who'd been feuding with the Iron Wolves for years, called a truce and contributed. Jason's hospital room looked like Christmas morning at a toy store. He'd never had so many stuffed animals, books, games, and clothes. He kept asking if it was really all for him, unable to believe such generosity existed. A child psychologist named Dr. Sarah Kim was assigned to Jason. She specialized in severe abuse cases. Her evaluation was heartbreaking. "This is one of the worst cases of psychological torture I've seen," she told Lisa and Big Mike. The starvation was bad enough, but the emotional abuse, making him write those things, convincing him he deserved to starve, that he caused his father to leave. It's going to take years of therapy. "Whatever he needs," Big Mike said. "Money's not an object. It's not about money. It's about time and patience. He's going to have setbacks, nightmares, trust issues. Food hoarding is common in starvation cases. He might hide food, overeat, or refuse to eat. Recovery isn't linear." She was right. Once Jason was released from the hospital, the real challenges began. He hid food everywhere, under his bed, in his closet, in his pockets. Lisa found sandwiches in his dresser drawers, cookies in his shoes, crackers stuffed in his pillowcase. She never scolded him, just gently reminded him food would always be available. The nightmares were horrible. Jason would wake up screaming, convinced he was locked in the closet again. Big Mike spent many nights sitting by his bed, his massive presence a comfort to the terrified boy. Sometimes Jason would crawl into bed with them, seeking the safety of their warmth. The custody hearing was set for 6 weeks later. Amanda's parents, William and Dorothy Morrison, flew in from Florida. They were decent people in their 60s, horrified at what their daughter had become. They petitioned for custody of Jason. "We failed our daughter," Dorothy said, crying. "We saw the signs of drug use and ignored them. We won't fail our grandson." It seemed like a good solution until Jason's history was examined more closely. He'd been hospitalized 6 times in 2 years for accidents. Broken arm from falling off his bike when he didn't own a bike. Burned hand from touching the stove when the stove hadn't worked in months. Each time, Amanda had convinced everyone he was just clumsy. Each time, the grandparents had been informed and done nothing. "You knew," Lisa said during a meeting. "You knew she was hurting him and you did nothing." William's face reddened. "We thought she just needed help. We sent money, which she used for drugs," Big Mike interrupted, "while your grandson starved." "We didn't know it was that bad." "Because you didn't want to know," Lisa shot back. "When did you last visit? When did you last demand to see Jason?" The silence was damning. They hadn't seen Jason in 2 years. The guardian ad litem, a lawyer appointed to represent Jason's interests, interviewed everyone. She spent hours with Jason, earning his trust with patience and kindness. Her report to the court was decisive. "Jason has bonded strongly with Michael and Lisa Thompson for the first time in years, possibly ever. He feels safe. He's gaining weight, attending therapy, and starting to smile. Removing him from their care would be devastating." On the day of the hearing, the courthouse was packed. 50 Iron Wolves members showed up in their colors, sitting quietly in solidarity. The judge, Harold Washington, was known for being tough but fair. Amanda was brought in wearing an orange jumpsuit and shackles. She'd lost more weight in jail. Her addiction no longer fed. She looked at Jason with eyes that seemed to focus for the first time in years. "My baby," she whispered. Jason pressed closer to Big Mike, trembling. The prosecutor laid out the case with brutal efficiency. The photos of Jason's skeletal frame, the locked kitchen, the journal full of self-hatred, the closet with scratch marks, the medical records showing systematic starvation, the scale logs planning his death. Amanda's lawyer tried to argue she was sick, not evil. That addiction had changed her. That with treatment, She could be a mother again. The judge listened patiently, then spoke. Mrs. Morrison, I've been on this bench for 15 years. I've seen every form of child abuse imaginable. But what you did to your son wasn't just abuse, it was torture. You tried to erase his very existence, to convince him he deserved to die. You locked him in darkness and starved not just his body, but his soul. He looked at Jason. Young man, can you come here, please? Jason looked terrified, but Lisa nodded encouragingly. He walked to the bench, Big Mike right beside him. Jason, you're very brave for being here today. I need to ask you something important. Where do you want to live? Jason's voice was tiny but clear. With Mike and Lisa, they feed me every day, and they don't hit me or lock me in the closet, and Mike reads me stories even though he says he's too tough for kid books, and Lisa makes pancakes shaped like Mickey Mouse like Mommy used to before she got sick. What about your grandparents? They want to take care of you. Jason shook his head. They knew Mommy was being mean, and they didn't help. What if they don't help again? And your mother? She's your mom. Do you want to see her? Jason was quiet for so long, everyone thought he wouldn't answer. Finally, he spoke. Maybe when I'm bigger, when I'm not scared anymore. But not now. She still scares me. Thank you, Jason. You can go sit down. Judge Washington's ruling was swift and decisive. Amanda's parental rights were terminated. She was sentenced to 5 years in prison with mandatory drug treatment. The grandparents were denied custody, but granted supervised visitation if Jason wanted it. Full custody was awarded to Lisa and Big Mike, with adoption proceedings to begin immediately. Amanda broke down sobbing. Please, he's my baby. I love him. You should have thought of that before you tortured him, the judge said coldly. Bailiff, remove her. As they dragged Amanda out, she screamed Jason's name. He didn't look back. 6 months later, Jason Thompson stood before the same judge for a happier reason. The adoption was being finalized. He wore a little suit that Lisa had bought him, and he couldn't stop smiling. The courtroom was packed again, but this time with celebration instead of sorrow. Jason Thompson, the judge smiled, using his new legal name. Welcome to your forever family. The Iron Wolves erupted in cheers. Tough men who'd terrified others were crying openly. Jason ran to Big Mike and Lisa, jumping into their arms. He finally had what every child deserved, parents who loved him. But the story still wasn't over. Amanda got out of prison after serving 3 years. She'd gotten clean and claimed to be reformed. She wanted to see her son. The restraining order said she couldn't come within 500 feet of him. She showed up at his school anyway. Jason was 11 now, healthy and thriving. He played basketball and had friends. He was in the lunch line when he glanced out the window and froze. Amanda was standing by the fence watching him. The old terror came flooding back. His hands shook. His breathing quickened. The lunch tray slipped from his fingers. But then he heard them. The right, beautiful, thunderous sound of motorcycles. The Iron Wolves had never stopped watching over him. They knew Amanda was out. Members took turns discreetly following Jason to school, to practice, to friends' houses. They were his guardian angels in leather. 20 bikes roared into the school parking lot. The principal, who'd been briefed on the situation, didn't even blink. The bikers surrounded Amanda, not touching her, but forming an impenetrable wall of leather and muscle. Please, Amanda begged. I just want to see him. I'm clean now. I'm better. Big Mike removed his sunglasses slowly. You had your chance. You chose drugs over your son. You chose to torture him. Now you're choosing to violate a restraining order. I'm his mother. No, Lisa said, stepping forward. I'm his mother. I'm the one who holds him during nightmares. I'm the one who taught him food is love, not a weapon. I'm the one who showed him he deserves to exist. You're just the woman who gave birth to him and then tried to destroy him. 5 minutes, Amanda pleaded. Just let me talk to him for 5 minutes. He doesn't want to talk to you, Big Mike said, and we're going to make sure you respect that. Now leave, or we'll help you leave. The principal had called the police. They arrived quickly, arresting Amanda for violating the restraining order. As they put her in the patrol car, she looked back one last time. Jason was watching from the cafeteria window, surrounded by friends who'd rushed to comfort him. He wasn't alone anymore. He'd never be alone again. That was 5 years ago. Jason is 16 now, a star athlete who towers over Lisa at 6 feet tall. He wants to be a social worker like her, to help kids the way she helped him. He speaks at conferences about surviving child abuse, his story inspiring others. He still has nightmares sometimes, but they are getting rarer. He still checks that there's food in the refrigerator before bed, but he no longer hides it. He still flinches when someone raises their hand too quickly, but he's learning to trust. Every Sunday, the Iron Wolves have a family barbecue. Jason helps cook, laughing with the men who saved his life. He wears a special patch on his jacket, Son of the Iron Wolves. He's teaching some of the older members to use smartphones, teasing them about being dinosaurs. At his adoption celebration years ago, Jason had stood up to speak. His voice was strong and clear. People think bikers are scary because they look different. They have tattoos and scars and loud motorcycles. But when I was dying, when I was so scared and hungry I wanted to disappear, they saw me. They fed me. They stood between me and the darkness. They showed me that family isn't about blood. It's about who shows up when you're at your worst. It's about who fights for you when you can't fight for yourself. The Iron Wolves aren't scary. They're heroes who happen to wear leather. Big Mike still has that napkin, the one Jason carried into the bar. That desperate night. He had it framed with a picture of Jason at his adoption and another at his first basketball game. Underneath it says, "Sometimes angels wear leather and ride Harleys. Sometimes a napkin saves a life." The Iron Wolves MC still meets every Thursday night at Diesel's bar. The rules are the same. The brotherhood is the same. But something fundamental changed that night Jason walked in. They learned that being tough isn't about violence or intimidation. It's about standing up for those who can't stand up for themselves. And if a child ever walks in asking for help, they remember Jason. And the night a desperate message on a napkin reminded them that the strongest thing a tough man can do is save a child. Amanda tried contacting Jason one more time when he turned 18. She sent a letter through her lawyer. Jason read it with Lisa and Big Mike beside him. It was full of apologies and explanations, but also blame and manipulation. Jason made his choice. He wrote back just once. "The boy you knew died in that yellow house. I'm someone else now, someone loved, someone worthy, someone who matters. I forgive you because holding on to hate is like drinking poison. But forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. I wish you peace, but I don't wish you in my life. Don't contact me again." He never heard from her again. Sometimes Jason drives past the yellow house on Pine Street. It's been condemned, windows boarded, yard even more overgrown. He doesn't stop, just notes it and moves on. That house holds no power over him anymore. His real home is wherever his family is, and family, he learned, is who chooses to love you. The Iron Wolves taught him that angels don't always have wings. Sometimes they have motorcycles and tattoos and hearts big enough to save a dying boy who thought he was worthless. Sometimes salvation comes from the last place you'd expect. And sometimes a crumpled napkin with a desperate message can change everything. If you've made it this far, please hit that subscribe button and check out one of the 2 incredible stories on your screen right now. Tomorrow's story will absolutely blow your mind.